listening to Lighthearted, the official podcast of the United States Lighthouse Society. My name is Jeremy D'Entremont. Welcome. My co-host today is Michelle Jewel Shaw, teacher, photographer, mom, and chairperson of Friends of Portsmouth Harbor Lighthouses. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Jeremy, and hello to all of our listeners out there.
Today is August 20th, 2023, and this is episode 239 of Lighthearted. In a few minutes, we'll listen to an interview about an effort to preserve a historic lighthouse keeper's house at Slip Point in the state of Washington. We're also going to hear some clips of a lighthouse keeper's son that I recorded more than 30 years ago. First, I want to thank everyone who entered the U.S. Lighthouse Society's first ever National Lighthouse Day dance contest. We got a good number of entries, and the judging is happening as we speak. So, Michelle, you and I took part in a dancing session at Portsmouth Harbor Light. I thought it was fun. Do you agree?
I absolutely do agree. We had a great time. A lot of fun.
Yeah. So would you recommend, I'm pretty sure we're going to do this again next year. Would you recommend to everybody listening that they dance at a lighthouse when we do this again next year?
Definitely. It was so much fun.
Yeah. And the other entries, I think when people see them eventually, they'll see that everybody had so much fun doing this.
Yeah.
And that was, I'd say, the number one idea behind the whole thing, you know?
Yeah.
I sort of feel like there's not enough fun in our world today.
There needs to be more fun. Yes.
Yeah. More fun, togetherness, and spirit, and demonstrating our love for lighthouses, you know.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. So
Nope.
Thank you again to everybody who entered the dance contest. I've got some ideas already about how we might do things a little even better for next year. So everybody should watch for those announcements. Also, Michelle, I know you went on an interesting trip last weekend. Where was that you went? Where did you go and what did you do?
So last weekend, my daughter and I went to New York City to see the Jonas Brothers at Yankee Stadium. So we got there Friday afternoon and stayed for the weekend. We stayed right in Times Square, so we got to explore lots of parts of the city, and then we saw them. We went to Yankee Stadium Saturday night for the show, and it was amazing. So my daughter, has been a big fan of the Jonas Brothers since she was 9 years old. So she's kind of grown up with them as they've grown up as well. So it was fun. Yeah, it was a great time.
Did you do a lot of screaming at the concert?
I did do a lot of screaming. So my voice might still be a little bit hoarse from that. And I may have done a lot of singing and dancing as well. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yankee Stadium. I mean, were there like 50,000 people at the concert?
There are so many.
Like
I think it was like 60,000.
Holy cow.
So yeah, they had us packed right in there too. We had floor seats. So we had pretty good seats.
Wow.
Yeah.
I haven't been to a concert of that scale since, date myself a little bit, but I think it's pretty close to 50 years ago, a Grateful Dead concert at the University of Massachusetts.
Oh, wow.
It was like a legendary concert. The stadium full of people. That was incredible. But it wasn't as big as that. That stadium is not as big as Yankee Stadium. So, wow.
Yeah. I also had my first ever subway ride
oh, wow.
to and from the concert. So that was interesting. So
yeah. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
That. Yeah, you're welcome. I've had a couple of interesting trips lately. I went to Graves Light in Boston Harbor last week. I got to see more of the amazing work that Dave Waller, the owner of Graves Light, has done there. It's absolutely incredible what he's done. Watch for more news. I am going to be posting, I think, both a video and a podcast version of a talk with him about the new lens in Graves Light. I won't say more about it right now, but it's all very exciting. And also yesterday I went to Thatcher Island off Cape Ann, Mass, with Sarah McHugh, who has co-hosted a few episodes of this podcast and done a couple of videos with me in the past. So watch the USLHS YouTube channel for a video of our visit there. I know we haven't been able to spend much time at Portsmouth Harbor Lighthouse this year because of storm damage, Michelle, but have you visited any other lighthouses this summer?
I've taken my annual ride by the Nubble, but other than that, I haven't been out to any lighthouses this summer. We haven't had the best weather around these parts this summer, so.
This is true. Yeah, I was pretty lucky with these last two trips I did, although leaving Graves Light, the wind and waves were really picking up, and that was interesting. I'll tell you.
That sounds like a great trip, though.
It was fantastic, but I don't know how many more exciting, getting on and off of lighthouses like that. I don't know how many more of those I can take. I'm not getting any younger, in case you haven't noticed, but it was
Sure
worth it. Well, in my mind, maybe. But anyway, it was great. So let's get to our first interview for today. So Michelle, please help me introduce Slip Point Light Station and our guests.
Sure, Jeremy. The Strait of Juan de Fuca is a body of water that is the Salish Sea's main outlet to the Pacific Ocean. The center of the strait constitutes the international boundary between Canada and the state of Washington in the United States. Clallam Bay is an indentation on the south side of the strait, about 30 miles from its mouth. Slip Point is at the east end of Clallam Bay.
In the early 1900s, there was a 60-mile gap with no lighthouses on the Strait of Juan de Fuca. A fog signal was established at Slip Point in 1905, but the first congressional appropriation for a light at the point wasn't enough for the construction of a lighthouse.
A lantern was hung on the fog signal building to provide a navigational light until another appropriation paid for the addition of a lighthouse tower in 1916. The square wooden tower was attached to the west side of the fog signal building. Keepers had to traverse a long wooden footbridge to get from the keeper's house to the lighthouse.
Slip Point Lighthouse was replaced in 1951 by a modern tower. After the light was automated in 1977, the duplex keeper's house has been used by Coast Guard personnel and the Clallam Bay County Sheriff's Department. In 2001, legislation was passed to transfer the light station to Clallam Bay Spit County Park, but the transfer still hasn't taken place.
Local resident Susan Heiny and her daughter Sarah Winter have formed a group called the Slip Point Lighthouse Keepers to work with the county to preserve the keeper's house and its history. Also joining us along with Susan and Sarah is Karolyn Burdick, the group's historian.
I enjoyed speaking with Susan, Sarah, and Karolyn using Zoom recently, so let's listen to that conversation now. I am speaking today with Susan Heiny, her daughter Sarah Winter Grafstrom, and Karolyn Burdick, who are all part of the effort to save the Slip Point Light Station, which we're going to talk about, obviously, today. Thanks so much for being with me today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Jeremy. Thanks for inviting us on.
Let's start maybe a little bit about your personal background before we get into the history of Slip Point and its light station and all that. Let's start with Susan and Sarah. Could you just say a little bit about how you got started on the effort with Slip Point? How did this happen?
Yeah. So my mom, she raised us down at Slip Point, right down from the lighthouse, and she made us walk the beach every day.
Okay.
And she started getting really interested in seeing this become a county park. And I've seen her working on this project, and I didn't have time because my kids were still at home, but now they're gone. So I have time to help her with it. And so we're reigniting this project.
Yeah. I moved to Clallam Bay in 1981 down at Slip Point. So we were down there every day. In the 90s, I started working for the Clallam County Parks. And I just always wondered why this wasn't a part of the Clallam Bay Parks. And it was pretty much closed off to the public. You know, you had to have an appointment, could not enter the grounds. Mm-hmm. And it was being used as a rental for the sheriff's department at the time. And I just thought we should make this a park. And then, I don't know, it just, you know, life goes on and you lose your momentum, and now we're bringing it back up again.
Yeah. Now, I understand that the two of you actually pretty much started the organization, the Slip Point Lighthouse Keepers, along with maybe a few other people involved in the starting up too. And Karolyn is with us today. Karolyn, were you also kind of in on the start of the organization?
Yeah, but I wasn't the initiator at all.
Mm-hmm. Sure. But you are considered pretty much the historian for the group. Is that correct?
I've done a lot of local history work with the Friends of the Clallam Bay Library. And we have a photograph collection, and that's kind of inspired my interest in the whole area.
Every group needs a historian, that's for sure. Let's talk a bit about the history of the place. First of all, the light station had resident keepers and families until it was automated in 1977, if I have that correct. And I'm wondering if since you started up this group, or even before that, if you've had contacts with possibly ex Coast Guard keepers of the station and or descendants of civilian keepers there. Have you had any contact with those people?
Since creating the Facebook page recently, I did ask for kind of a timeline. We're trying to put one together. And there was a really sweet story from a woman who lived there when she was a kid from 1980 to 1985. And that a Coast Guard helicopter landed in the front yard and Santa Claus got out and brought them their gifts. And so we're slowly getting some stories that way. We mostly know some of the sheriff's families that lived there in the past, but not so many of the keepers' stories.
Yeah. Well, they'll probably come out of the woodwork, I think, more of these people as time goes on. Speaking of the keepers there and the period when it was staffed by keepers and families, if there's anything else you want to mention, is there anything that kind of stands out from those years that you've heard about?
Doing some research and some of the info that we got from the United States Lighthouse Society, there's a picture of a keeper, but he wasn't our keeper. But I researched him, Oli, and if you look him up, there's some really sweet love letters that he was sending to his girlfriend who was down in Oregon, and so that stuff is coming up. But yeah, that's all I know about trying to find the history of it.
This Oli, was he keeper at other Washington lighthouses? Is that?
Yeah, he was tattooed. So he
in the 20s.
Okay. If you could clarify something for me, and I'm not sure if there's a definitive answer to this, but maybe Karolyn knows the answer. But I know there was some confusion, or for me at least, there's some confusion about when the original lighthouse was destroyed. I've seen it in some sources that say it was replaced by a modern tower in 1951. I've also heard a reference to it possibly being destroyed in a landslide in 1940.
I could not find any reference to it being destroyed. It was placed in 51, and then 77 was when it was abandoned, the idea. But I didn't find anything about destruction.
So the original lighthouse, which was originally a fog signal building, and then the lighthouse tower was added a little bit later, right? It was a very attractive building. So when was that torn down? Do you know?
I don't have any.
We don't.
We're slowly getting this history, from the community members.
The plate glass from the Fresno lens we still have. I mean, it's in the community. There's no frame to go with it, but the pieces of glass were saved.
So like individual prisms from the lens, that's what you have?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. It probably was, I would guess it might have been smashed when it was removed, but somebody salvaged the prisms. So
Yeah.
at this point, the Lighthouse Keeper's house is still standing, of course. Is there anything else left over from the light station still standing, or is that it?
There's a garage that's
A garage?
probably built up about the same time, and a little tiny privy.
Oh, okay. Well, that's cool because there aren't many lighthouse. Yeah, there aren't many lighthouse privies left, so that's actually of interest.
Yeah, really, I had no idea what it was. I found out through these blueprints that that's what it was. I can't think of anything else that is historic.
No. Yeah, I think
There's annex, but that was built in the 70s, and that's about it.
Yeah.
There is this back that's cemented, and I have no idea what that is. But that looks like it was built in the 70s as well.
See, we're putting it all together slowly, but I think that's where the generator was. And there's a picture of those women standing by that big generator, and that's what I'm thinking.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's all like putting a big puzzle together. I completely understand. I mean, even with a place like I'm involved here, I'm in New Hampshire, and I'm very involved with Portsmouth Harbor Lighthouse, is about 15 minutes from my home. And I've been researching it for well over 20 years, and I'm still always finding new pieces to the puzzle. And it's a well-documented place, and it goes back to 1771. So there's a
Wow.
lot of pieces of the puzzle, from all those years. So, but I completely understand. You're never finished with this too. So, but
Okay.
I'm sure you'll find a lot more pieces to the puzzle. So I was reading that and again, I'm not sure if this is accurate, but that the wood from the lighthouse and also the long footbridge that provided access from the keeper's house to the lighthouse for a long time,
Mhm.
I saw somewhere that they were sold as scrap. Do you know anything about that? What happened to all that?
Yeah, there's rumor that it was brought to a local marina and used for fill, and it sounds like maybe he might have salvaged some of the lighthouse glass. But I really don't know much
Right.
about.
Yeah.
And-
Yeah.
Dead now.
Yeah,
Well, at least I guess it survives in some form.
it's
But
right across from the lighthouse. It's right across the bay from the lighthouse.
the keeper's house, you touched on this before, Susan, but after the automation of the light in 1977 and the de-staffing of the light station by the Coast Guard, how has the keeper's house been used over the years?
Well, it's been used mostly as a sheriff's rental and not very frequently. Usually one part of the duplex is used or the other part, but hardly anybody's been, and there's been nobody there for at least 3 years.
Living
in the duplex. So it really has gone downhill.
Mm-hmm.
There's been no work on it for years. And so when I found out that the sheriffs had dropped the lease with the Coast Guard, I thought we could try and get the lease. And we are still working on that.
These things don't tend to move really fast. I probably don't need to tell you that. Yeah.
No. In fact, I just got an email today from Beverly that they have decided not to lease to us at this time.
Okay.
So-
At this time. Well, that's the key phrase.
So
There.
I said.
So I'm a little disappointed.
Yeah.
But-
Yeah.
It's due to the fact that it just was put into the National Historical Registry.
Mm-hmm.
So I do believe we could still lease it. I don't think that that's a legality that keeps us from being able to lease it. I think it's just another hurdle we have to go over.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but you just be persistent. You'll get there.
Oh my gosh.
My mom, she's been working on this for so long.
Yeah.
She-
How many years have you been working on it since the first
Well,
push? 20. It's more than 20 years, isn't it?
well, I started back in the 90s, and then I gave it up because it was, difficult. And so I just started last year when I found out that last summer.
Mhm.
So 2022, I found the email to the woman that is the lease, the senior leasing person in the West Coast. And I called her, and it really sounded encouraging in the beginning, like, oh yeah, you can totally lease this.
Mhm.
And so I've been working with her for a year, and then the sheriff's department decided to re-up their lease, and I don't know,
They still don't have a lease yet, though.
the waters got muddy. So anyway, we're still working at it, but yeah, it's an uphill climb.
Yeah. One thing that occurs to me, I wonder if there might be issues with contamination with lead paint, either in and on the building and possibly in the soil as well.
Yeah.
Yes, there
Yeah.
is that.
Because that, I know in a number of cases, that's prevented the transfer or leasing of property by the Coast Guard to other groups. So,
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, and we have the reports, from the testing that's already been done, but I believe that was done in 2006.
mhm.
And we're looking to just, protect the grounds, do some cleanup, take pictures, just get the community involved at this point. We're not looking to get in there and start cleaning up the actual lead paint tile,
Well, that has to be done by a contractor, of course, is qualified to do that. Yeah.
so Clallam County can see the vision for this to be a community involved project and not just a Clallam County Parks sheriff's place.
Yeah. So, Susan, you mentioned the house being neglected for a while now and not being in great shape. If we just get a little bit more specific, is it mostly cosmetic, or does it really need a huge amount of work, would you say? Yeah.
We had a community meeting, and the new sheriff, Brian King, came out, and he had a key to the building. And so after the meeting, we were able to walk through it. And the bones of the building look good. They just, it's a beautiful old, turn of the century building.
Yeah.
But, the past renters, there's some garbage all around it. There's a lot that can be done that doesn't have to be specific, cleaning up the toxic, asbestos. It's like, there's just good cleanup that needs to be done around there. This is in our community. It's our only historic building in our community.
Yes.
And we just think it needs to have some attention. And so that's all we wanted to do.
Well, good for you. And I commend your effort for sure. Clarify something else for me. It's my understanding that the property was supposed to become part of Clallam Bay Spit Community Beach County Park. That's a lot of words in that name. That was supposed to be part of this county park. But am I right in saying that the transfer still hasn't actually happened? That the inclusion in the park hasn't actually happened, or can you explain that?
Well, the building, as far as what I could hear from the Coast Guard, is the building cannot be transferred until all the toxic, they can't transfer a toxic property.
Right.
So they come up with the money, and it's low on their priority right now to come up with, so it could take years.
But we are working with Patty Murray's office and Derek Kilmer's office, and this, and they're ready to package it into some kind of bill and get it passed by the spring.
So this kind of is part of the whole package that we're talking here. We're talking about it becoming part of the county park, but possibly also being leased to your organization. And you would work with the county to preserve the house. So that's all part of the package.
Yes, we're working towards trying to get this lease so that we can actually get feet on the ground and work on it. We're gathering historic material. We want to use this we want to eventually have it be a museum, maybe a living museum in one half of the duplex. We want it to house not only Native American material, but marine material, logging, history. There's a lot to do with this place.
Absolutely, yeah. Certainly the history of the light station itself, of course, would be part of that. But yeah, that was my next question. I was going to ask you if there were plans to make it into a museum. I knew that there was talk of that.
Yeah. We want to rebuild the original. We have the blueprints to rebuild the original lighthouse, and we just can't wait.
Yeah, so I know it's a step at a time, and the sometimes the first step is the hardest. I know that from experience. But you are eventually hoping to rebuild the lighthouse building.
Oh, yes. Yeah. That's definitely part of our plans.
Yeah, that was part of what one of our past county commissioners, Mike Doherty, had worked on, and we have the cost, materials, and the new plans drawn up to make a replica. And that was 20 years ago.
Wow. So if I was going to say if it's rebuilt, but I'll say when it's rebuilt, will it be in the same position, same location as it was originally, or would it be in a slightly different place?
A different place.
Yeah. More safe ground. I'm assuming probably closer to the keepers.
Someplace a little more accessible to everybody, I would think.
It's a fifth of a mile that was that walkway. So if you were to put a replica lighthouse back there, you would have to rebuild a fifth of a mile walkway, and that would be daunting in itself.
Plus just the inconvenience if you have it open to visitors or whatever, it's more work and then you have to worry if a storm hits and
Yes.
damages the walkway and everything else. So
Yes.
yeah, it would make sense to not put it there. The modern tower that replaced the lighthouse, that doesn't exist anymore, right? Or does it?
No, they put a light on a buoy,
Right.
just off the point.
There's not a operating fog signal there, right?
No, there used to be.
Mhm.
Yeah, we
It
used
was
to
like a Beulah sound. Beulah.
Yeah. So I was also seeing, I believe mostly on your Facebook page, that there's another effort you're involved in besides everything to do with the lighthouse and keeper's house, an effort to fix a bridge, a beach access bridge. Is that right?
Yeah, I just figured since we were going to be working on this, we should start working on a park we already have, a Clallam County park that's already established. And it's right in the middle of our drive-through town. And it's got public bathrooms and a beautiful wooden bridge, but it hasn't had the actual ramp for a number of years. So most of our visitors can't access the beach from our beach access spot. And so we're working with the Clallam County Parks Department in just nudging them that, we need this done too.
Sure.
Some attention to be brought to Clallam Bay, the small little town. It's a jewel. It's beautiful, but it's become kind of just a drive-through town at this point.
Well, I think you're going to change that.
Yeah, I hope so.
The issue with the bridge is that it crosses the river and to the sand spit that's beyond there, and the river channel changes every year. So sometimes, and for a long time, the bridge went across, and there was a lot of stuff going on the spit. The spit is now shrunken. Everything that was structure is gone now, and the river keeps changing, and so it's like whack-a-mole or something, how much here, how much more, to actually reach so people can have access.
Well, that sounds like a worthy effort as well. So you have a Facebook page, right?
Yes, we do.
Which is under what name?
Clallam Bay Slip Point Lighthouse Keepers. And we're picking up, there's a lot of, I'm going through and vetting, followers and picking people that I think are real and part of the community. So that's been a little bit of work to keep it local and network with people. And so it's creating an interest, and I think it is creating a little bit of a storming in the community that people will start to get excited.
Yeah, I was looking at the Facebook page, and you definitely have a good amount of interest there. And one of the hardest things about Facebook is telling which people are real or not. I've experienced a lot of that as well. So if people want to help, whether they're in your area or not, people listening might think, wow, this is a good effort. I'd like to help them move forward. What can people do to find out more and to get involved?
We would like somebody who has already done this with the Coast Guard of trying to get a lease to maybe give us some pointers, or to, we keep feeling like we're reinventing the wheel here. And I think since it's already been done, what are we needing to do to make this move forward with the Coast Guard? So if anybody's out there.
Yeah, and also liking Facebook page, because eventually we will become nonprofit, I believe, and we will be applying for grants and doing fundraisers and other really cool things that other lighthouses are doing.
Everything's on hold though until the Coast Guard does the hazardous materials abatement. It has been on hold for so many years that we are growing gray and exhausted,
Yeah.
I mean, Congress passed the authorization in 2021. No, 2001.
Yes.
And so that's 22 years ago. 22 years ago. And nobody's moved off the dime since then. And it is just maddening.
Yeah. And that's why we're calling, Patty Murray's office and, trying to get this ball moving and packaged and approved.
I love what you're saying, Susan, though. I think you're absolutely right. You don't want to try to reinvent the wheel, and there are people who've gone through similar processes. And I may have a suggestion for you, but I'll do it
Okay.
off mic here. So, but I definitely have something I want to recommend to you. Let me ask you a real general question, and this is for any or all of you. Why is this property important to the community? Why does the keeper's house and the history of the place need to be saved?
It's been an amazing community in the past. I have a lot of information just recently gathered from 1892, which was before the lighthouse was ever built, and the energy of the community back then, you can just see it. And there are amazing stories to be told about all of the people who lived here then. And I think we have a history that is kind of unequaled in the area. It's a beautiful location and a unique location. And I just think our history should be available to other people to know.
Absolutely.
This is a part of our community that has been blocked off.
Ah, yes.
Basically for over 40 years, as long as I've lived here. And for us to change that mindset in the county, we're just this little tiny community out here. And it's really hard to change the mindset of even the people in town. Like, oh, we can't do that. So I would like to see, that change. And then to see how our community can blossom with this in our back pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And doing something, wonderful with it, instead of how it's been used.
Yes.
Well, I want to see it preserved, and so it can be appreciated from, now on, and for families to be able to appreciate the history of the area they're visiting.
There's more to it than the history too, because as a marine area, it has tremendous sea life, and they have classes that come out from universities and do studies here. And so, there's just a lot to it. And the huge beach starting at Slip Point and going all the way to CQ, it's an amazing resource if we can only get the pieces together.
Yeah. Well, you've convinced me, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because the natural environment would have to be a big component in all this. And I imagine that might end up being a component of the museum down the road. But what a great thing for local school kids to come and learn about the history there, as well as the marine life, the wildlife, and the environment there. So it's got the whole package for sure. I have one final question, and this again is for all three of you, and this is for bonus points. Okay. And the final question is, what I know it's frustrating. I know that for sure. I understand that, but I'm sure there's positive aspects too to this project. What have you enjoyed most? What has been your favorite part of your effort to preserve Slip Point Light Station and its history?
I think for me, it has been the networking and seeing how other people's skills can bring to this dream. And as of right now, I got an email from Al. He's an architect who preserves historical buildings in LA, and he used to work he's retired Coast Guard, and he is so excited about doing pro bono, drawing this up for us and helping us figure this out. And that's exciting. And then just to see everybody's skills and interest and how it kind of is coming together until we hit a wall. But
I've been enjoying this process more. I started this kind of on my own a year ago, and then I realized I needed some support. And so finding people in the community that felt just as passionate as I did, and working with my daughter, who is like this, it's like having a super person right next to me who does the things that I can't do, like Facebook. And and email.
Zoom.
Yeah, so it's been fun
Right.
working with them and her in particular.
How about you, Karolyn?
Well, I'm fascinated by the history, and just being involved in this has helped me deepen my understanding of what actually took place there, and I want to know more. And I feel like it's a magical place. Really, there is something about the location that is just so special, and I would like more people to know that it's there.
Yeah, have it open.
Yeah.
A park.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, you've totally sold me. I wish I had some power to do something about this. But anyway, it's a worthy project. There's no doubt about that. And I commend you on moving forward, not giving up, because it is going to happen. Just hang in there. Yeah. It's really a great project. So I want to thank you so much for spending this time with me today, Sarah and Susan and Karolyn. I really appreciate it. It's been fun talking with you. I'm going to follow this project closely, and maybe we can talk again sometime. Give us a status report, and I'm hoping there'll be plenty of good news when we do that. So thank you so much.
Sure.
You can read more on the Facebook page for the Clallam Bay Slip Point Lighthouse Keepers. There are historic photos of the light station and reports on the group's activities.
Even though the lighthouse no longer stands at Slip Point, I really think the restoration of the Keeper's House is a worthy project and that it can be a centerpiece of that community. I also believe they will succeed in their goal of rebuilding the lighthouse in the not-too-distant future. Now we're going to do something a little different. I was digging through my old lighthouse digital files, and I found some clips from around 1990 related to the old Lovells Island Range Light Station in Boston Harbor. It's a light station that no longer exists. Michelle, please help me tell everyone about Lovells Island.
I'd be glad to. Lovells Island is about 3/4 of a mile long and 1/3 of a mile wide. It's in Boston Harbor, about 7 miles from Boston, close to the main shipping channel. In the early 20th century, the island became home to Fort Standish. Going back to the 1700s, a large tree on the island served as a day beacon for mariners entering Boston Harbor.
In the early 1900s, the opening of the Broad Sound Channel created a need for a new system of navigational aids to direct traffic into the inner harbor. A range light station was established on Lovells Island in 1903 with 2 conical wooden lighthouse towers. The rear light was 40 feet tall and the front light was 31 feet tall.
Charles Jennings became the keeper at Lovells Island in 1919. He had previously served at Thatcher Island, Monomoy Point, and Boston Light. We know a lot about the Jennings family's years at Lovells Island, thanks to a book written by his son, Harold, called A Lighthouse Family.
Harold Jennings served in the Navy in World War II and later worked as a plumber on Cape Cod. He was instrumental in the formation of the Nauset Light Preservation Society in Eastham on Cape Cod in the 1990s. He passed away in 1996, but I was lucky enough to know Harold, and several times I visited Lovells Island with him and other people from the Friends of the Boston Harbor Islands. I'm going to play a few clips from those visits. Michelle, please help me introduce the first clip.
Sure. While digging in his garden, keeper Charles Jennings would occasionally find an old tarnished coin. The oldest of the European coins he found dated to 1600. The historian Edward Rowe Snow speculated that the keeper had unearthed some of the treasure from the Magnifique, a 74-gun French man-of-war wrecked on the island in 1782.
One of the times I walked around Lovells Island with Harold Jennings, he actually had some of those coins with him. So here he is talking about them. In this clip you're going to hear a lot of background noise, but I think you can understand everything Harold is saying.
Back in the 30s, my father, lighthouse keepers were only allowed 14 days leave. And of the 14 days that they were on leave, the government sent a substitute. And that was the only time of year they could have a substitute. Well, my father had been out in the garden, he found a coin. And there was a good-sized hole there. And so when the assistant came on the station, he looked down, he said, "What's the hole out there, child?" And he said, "Well, I found a coin, and I was just looking around to see if there was any more." So when the assistant keeper left, they parted ways at the pier, and when Dad got back up to the house, he looked out in the yard, and there's a bigger hole. And the story goes that Edward Rosenau said that about a month later, the assistant keeper retired.
In this next clip, Harold explains why he didn't go swimming much at Lovells Island.
Now the sun's on the sand. When the sand comes in, the water is usually warm. And if we did any swimming, that's when we did it on a day like this. Otherwise, you didn't swim. It turned blue in 5 minutes. Cold. The waters are cold out here. And friends of mine used to come and say, "Oh, you're lucky you live on an island. You can go swimming." Well, I say, go ahead and find out.
Next, here's a clip of Harold talking about his school years.
See, I went my first grade in Hull, then my second grade in South Boston, third grade in Eaton Boston, fourth grade in Salem, and fifth grade on the island here. We had a private teacher. But I hated that because I could hear my father moving around and I could hear the boats going by, and I was distracted.
In the last clip, Harold talks about an old underground military tunnel at Lovells Island.
They were hinged on each side. You open them, they creaked like the old mysteries, So they go in, and you go in about 10 or 15 feet, and then you make a right-hand turn, and you go for about another 10 or so feet, and it goes down, here, and it goes down and right out to the waterfront, right out on the beach. You used to be able to see the dome on it out there on the beach. Well, Edward Rosenau was, "Come on with me, come on." We'd be squatting down like this, and he'd have the light, and he'd put the light out, and us kids would scream. It was spooky on there.
Those clips of Harold Jennings are short, but to me they're like treasure. I wish I could have recorded a lot more of his memories. Harold Jennings' book, A Lighthouse Family, was republished by the Friends of the Boston Harbor Islands a few years ago. You can contact them about getting a copy, and it's also available on Amazon.
Be sure to check out uslhs.org to learn about upcoming tours and events, preservation grants, the Passport Program, the research catalog, and everything else the Society offers. Remember that donations and memberships help support this podcast.
To everyone out there who works to preserve lighthouses or any kind of history, thanks for everything you do. We're all on the same team. On next week's episode of Lighthearted, we'll hear a conversation with my good friend Bob Trapani, the Executive Director of the American Lighthouse Foundation, about Maine Open Lighthouse Day, an event that's coming up soon. Until then, to all our regular listeners and our new ones, thanks so much for listening, and
keep a good light.
I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. All in my house, I'm gonna let it shine. All in my house, I'm gonna let it shine. All in my house, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine.